Hi and welcome to today's demo. So I took one of our 4.5 by 6-inch little boards and I quickly did a freehand sketch of this sphere with the cast shadow and the back of the table. Just did a really quick freehand version of that. I want you to do the same thing. Just try to keep the sphere rather large on the paper. You don't want it to be too small, okay? Make sure you fill up this little page as much as you can. And then once you're done with the drawing, you need to add a layer of clear leveling gel over it. You can see how this is a little glossy. That's because I just applied the layer. You'll notice that there's some streaking. It picked up the pencil a little bit and kind of smudged it around, and that's fine. That's to be expected. It's already getting dry, but I'm going to set it aside because I need to mix my palette first. I'm going to walk through mixing my palette, but I'm going to go at my speed. I'm going to go kind of fast because you can rewind it or pause it and work along with me. So be sure you have some water, you have your palette, I'm just going to add a little tape to my board here to make sure that I stay in frame for you. Here's my Stay Wet palette. My paints from last week got really dry, so I got rid of them. I'm going to make another 5-part value scale over here. So I need my palette knife, my titanium white, and my Mars black. I'm also going to need my gel retarder. And eventually I'll need my liquid medium, but I'm going to set that aside for now. So let's start with value number 5 at the top. Which is going to be pure black. So that's all I need for that. Value number 4 is going to be partially black. I'm going to add a little pile of white up to the side here. So I'll pick up, I think that's about 30%. I want like 30% of this size of black. See how it goes. Pick up a little more white. A little more. Black is a very strong color. It's very opaque. So it can overpower your white really easily. That's another reason that we always, when we're doing a blend, we always work from light to dark. Okay, I think that works. Now I'm going to add a small amount of black there. And I'm going to take equal amount of white. See what happens. It's not bad. I think we could go a little lighter with it though. So I add more white up here to the side. I'm gonna wipe my palette knife off because I don't want to accidentally get that gray mixed into my white too much. That looks pretty good. I'm just going to put a little bit of black here. And I'm going to start my second value with white. So I'm going to pull in a large amount of white and just a small amount of black. See how small that is? That feels maybe a little too light, so I'm going to pull some of my third value into my second value. Okay, I can already tell I need to adjust these, but I'm going to go ahead and put my first value in. Value number 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we look at this difference between each one, I feel like these two are okay. The difference between them feels like a nice distance. But then we jump to this one and it's a little dark, and this one again is really dark. These two are so close together. So I'm going to go ahead and add white to both of these. Let's add a little here. And this is already lightened. So I'm going to take some of it, because I have a pretty big pile. I'm going to take some of it and add it into my fourth value. This is normal. You have to just adjust these things over and over until it looks right to you. Yeah. Let me see. That looks pretty good. It's good enough. Let's go with that. So pause this and rewind and mix your palette with me. However long it takes you is totally okay. Now, don't forget the gel retarder. So you absolutely need this if you're using a Stay Wet palette and you want your paints to stay wet for a long time, you need this. Of course, if you couldn't get this, that's okay. You'll be able to use the paints just as they are with a little bit of water added to them with your brush. But the more I use this stuff, the more I recommend it. I think it's pretty great. So I'm going to add just about 20% the size of each pile. And I just need to go through and mix those nice and thoroughly. Remember to clean off your palette knife so you don't contaminate the next pile. So I'm just mixing this gel retarder in now. You can see how it's starting to thin my paints a little bit. It's going to help them stay wet. That looks good. I'm gonna set my palette right there. Got my image here. And I want to show you how to make something called a value finder. You don't have to do this, but I recommend it. I think it helps a lot. So you just take a piece of Xerox paper, plain copy paper, and in the center of it, you want to cut about a 1 by 1 inch square. It doesn't have to be a perfect square. You don't have to measure it. It's just a little square. It could be a little circle if you wanted. But what I do with this, it lets me isolate values so I can get a better understanding of what value I'm actually working with. Right. This tool, along with my grayscale printout, is really valuable. My printer doesn't do blacks very well, so I know that my black paint gets darker than this 5th value. So this is kind of a loose reference tool. It's just meant to help me out, but it's not going to be totally true to my paints. So I'm looking at both. I'm going to reference this, but I'm also looking at my paints and deciding, is this equal to my black? You know, it kind of looks like 5th value here, but it's not as dark as my paint is. So let's see. Set this aside. See if you can still see it. So you can sort of see it if I leave it there, right? Okay. So I've got my little 4.5 by 6 inch painting I'm going to work on. I'm going to place that there. This is a pretty small surface to work on, so I'm probably going to stick to my, what is this, 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch shaders. The 1/4 inch might come in more handy because of the size of this, but the techniques are the same. So first of all, we're gonna simplify this image. You may notice that there is a gradient in the background between the left side and the right side. This is probably more like a 3.5 value, and this is more like a 4.5. But we're going to simplify this. So let's turn this all into one value. Let's call this 4th value. We'll just split the difference and make that all 4th value. Before we paint, if you have liquid medium, be sure you add that to your palette. Remember, you just put it in a little pool next to your paints, and we're going to dip our brush in it. If you're using water, remember you'll just dip your brush in the water to thin out your paints. So let's start with this top area, and we said it was 4th value. So I pick up a little bit of my liquid medium, go to my 4th value, And we're painting thin, washy strokes. I can turn my brush on its side a little bit like that to get a clean, sharp line. Because I want a sharp line where the sphere meets the background, right? Okay, washy and loose is great. You can see how thick it is. It's not very thick at all. All right, let's move to this tabletop. I'm going to call this tabletop, let's call it second value. Be sure you rinse your brush, dry it, pick up some liquid medium, pick up second value. Paint your second value in. So remember, I'm simplifying everything for the sake of this piece. There is a gradient here that we can see, but I'm not even going to worry about that right now. I just want to practice putting this paint on, figuring out how thick it should be, and practice making my blends. Okay, so now before we go any further, let's address this area where the table meets the background. I'm going to clean my brush. Since this is a small area, I'm going to switch to my 1/4 inch shader. Get it a little wet. Okay. I need to add, we called this 4th value, so I need to add a little bit of 4th value. There. And quickly, before it dries, I need to add second value here. And then I'm going to blend second value into 4th value. And I don't need to labor at it too much. That's all I did, that kind of quick. Let me see if I can zoom in for you. I just did a tiny little line right there. That's all I needed to do. The more we do this, the better that's going to look. So let's repeat that same process on the right-hand side. I'm going to add a little bit of 4th value over here. Clean my brush, dry it off, pick up liquid medium, pick up second value, add in my second value again so that it's nice and wet. And then I have a lot of paint on my brush. I'm going to dry it off a little bit. And then I'm going to do my blend. There. Easy. Okay, let's keep using our 1/4 inch shader. I'm going to move to the shadow, the cast shadow. I think this is the darkest area of this entire image, so let's go ahead and give it 5th value. So pick up some liquid medium, pick up fifth value, that might be a little too thin. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit more fifth value. I don't want my paint to be so thin that I can't even hardly see it. Okay, real quick. Whoops, what if I make a mistake like that? This clear gel that we put on our piece is really great because I can just wipe it off. I can clean up that edge so easily. All right, while this is still wet, I'm going to add a little bit of my second value over here because I really want to drag this blend out. I'm going to soften this blend all the way around. Get a really soft edge. That'll do for now. It's not really pretty, but the second layer is going to help a lot. Make sure you wash your brush really well. We're going to move to the sphere now. Make sure you can see that. Okay, yeah. Okay. So the sphere, I think the majority of it and the light here is second value, and the highlight's going to be first value. So let's start by adding second value into this bigger area. Pick up some liquid medium, pick up second value. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush again and add a little bit of first value for that highlight. It's right about there. Now the core shadow, looks to be about the same value as the background, so I'm going to go with fourth value. Pick up some liquid medium, add fourth value all the way around here. Okay, and while that's still wet, wash and dry my brush, pick up second value, lay it down here so now there's wet paint against wet paint, and I can start to blend these two. it pulled a lot of the dark over, which is fine, but it lifted the dark off of this side, right? So now it's kind of light. That makes me think I need to go back in, pick up some fourth value, and just kind of keep at that blend. I want to see if I can make this a really nice and soft blend. Okay, that looks good, but then it got too high over here. So, clean off my brush, get second value, and push it back down. Okay. Now I think this reflected light in here looks to me more like third value. Let me pick up some liquid medium, pick up third value. And again, if you want a really sharp, clean edge, if you turn your brush a little bit, you can get this really, you're like dragging it sideways along the line you want. Get really clean edge. And this needs to be blended into this too. So let's see if that's still wet enough. Looks okay. Yeah. I'm not real happy with this blend over here. I think there's problems everywhere, but that's okay. We're gonna call that our first layer. That's our first underpainting. I'm gonna let this completely dry, and then I'm gonna add a coat of clear leveling gel. And I have to let that dry as well. So I'm gonna do that off camera, let it dry, add my clear leveling gel, and then let that dry, and then when I come back, I'll be able to jump right back into the painting.